Hello, everybody. I'm Ron Garret, your host of Vegas Pulse. Stories from the back of the house. Now, when I say that, what I mean is that we're going to hear about things that took place that the public generally didn't know anything about. And with me right now is a filmmaker, a documentary maker, an artist, a man with a lot of talent who knows how to put these kind of shows together. Currently doing a documentary. The name of the documentary is what, Doug?
A History of Las Vegas Nightlife.
His name is Doug Jablin, and he's here to talk to me. We're going to reverse the roles just a little bit. He's here to talk to me about my experiences back in the 70s when discos were king here in Las Vegas. Thank you for coming on Vegas Pulse, Doug. We appreciate it.
Oh, you are so welcome.
So go ahead. I'm ready to go here. Give me the first one.
So the first nightclub that opened was Billy Jack's, which
First
is
one I went to, yeah.
right across from Mandalay Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And
which was the hacienda at the time.
Yeah. And it, was like anything else that had occurred before in Vegas's history, because you had discotheques, but not DJ-driven discotheques. And Billy Jack's had Larry Taylor, who was the first DJ, actual famous DJ in town.
In that kind of atmosphere, there were others, but Larry was the first one that was let's call him a disco jockey, because that's what they were doing. And we went into the Billy Jack's. It was the hottest joint in town at the time, and it was a hell of a place.
And there were celebrities there because anyone who played Las Vegas or came to Las Vegas went to Billy Jack's.
A lot of celebrities, a lot of things going on there that sometimes we can't talk about. But I was the advertising agency guy. I was in the ad business. I came to Las Vegas 1971. My first job was at the Mint Hotel in the PR department. And that was okay, but it didn't pay a lot of money, and I lost all my money thinking I was a great gambler. So I went to another position after that. Don't do that. Don't spend your first paycheck and put it on red. Win the first time and then lose on black 2 times right after that, and then have no money to make it to the next payday.
You're not the only one.
First lesson I learned. I became a disc jockey over at KRAM Radio, which is a country station here in town at the time. I don't think KRAM's around anymore, those call letters, but it was 1340 AM, and there's another station there now. And then from there, I became an ad man and went to work for a gentleman named Mark Parr, who had an advertising agency called Advertising West. He left town for some reasons that I really don't know. I really don't, but all of a sudden he was gone and handed me his ad agency, clients and all. I joined up with a young man. His name was Tom Letizia. Him and I became the biggest retail advertising agencies in Las Vegas, and at one point handled 7 different discotheques, all at the same time.
That's amazing. So you stayed busy.
I stayed busy and hung around discotheques. Tom and I had 2 shifts, 9 to 5 and 9 to 5. He worked the day shift, 9 to 5, and I worked the night shift, 9 to 5.
So let's talk about Billy Jack's.
Billy Jack's, yes.
So Larry said that he went to Phoenix to a club called Bobby McGee's.
Bobby McGee's.
And he learned DJing by watching the DJ, because there was no DJ school or way of learning at that point. He came back and he started working at Billy Jack's as a DJ.
Bobby McGee's was probably the model for these places back then. It was in Phoenix. I was there. I went to Bobby McGee's. And, that was the one to model it after. And then he became the hot stuff. He became the DJ at Billy Jack's. It was a terrific place, and it was the most popular place in town. And then the other places started opening up. We made a lot of radio spots for Billy Jack's. And the one that Larry liked the best is the one that said, "Take her to Billy Jack's, because if you don't, someone else will." And that was pretty much the case. It was a fantastic place. Now, there was a lot going on.
So Rainier Gund owned Billy Jack's.
Rainier Gund and Rudy Schneider. They were partners.
And you told me that they were Nazis.
Well, Rudy wasn't, but Rainier, I wouldn't say he was a Nazi, but I would say that he was in favor of everything that was Hitler. Not to pin anything on him, but I don't know. But there was pictures on the wall in his office of him being in a Nazi staff car.
Wow.
And it wasn't the one that was on display over at the Imperial Palace in Ralph Engelstadt's collection. But he had that staff car. One of them.
That's crazy.
Hitler's staff car here in Vegas.
And later he opened up Dirty Sally's.
He opened up Dirty Sally's along with Rudy. And that became much bigger than Billy Jack's because the physical space was there. And it's right where the Encore or the Wynn is right now, on that corner. I believe it's Sands and Las Vegas Boulevard.
And that was the location of the Pussycat A Go-Go.
That's the same building that the Pussycat A Go-Go was in became Dirty Sally's, which then began to beat all the other places at the time. And it was the place. I remember guys pulling up with Rolls Royces. He was a real nice fella, but he was basically a pimp. And I can't think, his name was Lionel. I can't think of his last name right now. Young guy, driving a Rolls, and he was always hanging out there. But there was a lot of other seedy characters that were coming and going inside that place. Again, I was the ad agency, and I was writing commercials for it and trying to make that the hottest joint in town. And we ran a lot of radio spots.
Now, up to, I don't know, 98, there wasn't any of these clubs in any of the hotels, discotheques.
No, they were not in the hotels. Of course, they're there now.
Mm-hmm.
No, they were all separate, standalone buildings. None of them were in shopping centers. They're pretty much standalone places. But there were 7 of them that we handled, and not all of them were famous. But because of we were handling the biggest one in town, we were able to get these others as well along the way. I got to take a break right now, and we're going to come back and talk with you some more, Doug. It's Doug Jablin. Doug is a filmmaker and a documentary maker, an artist, and a very nice fella, and he's got some more questions for me right after this. And we're back on Vegas Pulse, stories from back of the house. You know what back of the house is, right, Doug?
Sure.
That's the people you never see, the ones that are the stagehands, the wardrobe people, just about everybody that works at back, the ushers, back of the house, bartenders, stuff like that, cooks. That's where the real action took place in the casino business.
So in Las Vegas in the 70s, the mob ruled.
The mob ruled. There's a story. I don't know if the sheriff was in the mob, and I doubt that, but everybody looked the other way because at that point, it was good for business. They ran the hotels, and a lot of people think better than they do now. But they also were involved in these other clubs, in the strip joints and in the discotheques. And actually, later on in years, the strip joints and the discotheques kind of merged together into a separate entity like Sapphire's, which is the largest strip club, I think, in the world, square footage-wise. But they were everywhere, and they ran hotels and nightclubs and restaurants using a simple formula. Have great customer service, pass out a lot of comps, have affordable food, and keep the odds low.
So
which we're able to do by manipulating the machines.
So what was it like working for the mob or working with the mob?
Well, I worked with them. I wasn't in the mob. Let me say that anymore anyway. Let me say that. I wasn't in the mob. But yet the clients were. And one that comes to mind most is someone we already spoke about, Ronnie Vallone, who was the boss at it was the same building as Billy Jack's, but now it was called Bogey's. It's the same building. That used to be the Alpine Village, by the way, before it became Billy Jack's. They moved over to Paradise, and now they're gone. That was a great restaurant.
That was.
So one of the stories that we talked about is that I would go get paid. We had a pretty good ad budget, and it was weekly. We'd pick up money, but at 4:00 in the morning, because that's when Ronnie was there. That's when he worked. That's when the club was rolling. Those clubs really didn't get rolling until about 11 o'clock at night. We didn't go out till 11 o'clock. No one went out at 9 o'clock. We went out at 11 o'clock because that's when the action began. And they'd go to 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. A lot of guys would swing by at 5 in the morning and pick up the stragglers who didn't find the guy that night. And so I would collect the money that was owed to my company. At the time, it was about $4,000 a week. Of course, we had to pay stations with that money. I didn't get to keep it all. But we got paid in a very interesting way. As we sat at the table to get paid, Ronnie would have a stack of hundreds, and we'd count them off to me for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then another 100 would go to the house. Well, he was the house. And did it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and one over here. 1, 2, 3. So I came up short about $500 because he kept that for the house. That's just one of the many stories that took place over there. There was a lot of drugs involved in those joints in the day. Let's go a little bit fast forward to the brewery. At the brewery, and also at hotels, the valet guys were the go-to guys. They were the guys that would take care of business. There's a story about down in Laughlin when I was there that the public relations guy of the Colorado Bell had a nice Corvette, and he would find what he wanted under his seat after he had the valet park it. The valet people were taking care of business. In the movie Casino, Sharon Stone says she says that they took care of her, and there's a scene where she's slipping the valet guys a $100 bill. That's the way it was. They knew everything. If I wanted to know what was going on in a hotel or in a nightclub, discotheque, or a strip joint, talk to the valet guys. They knew everything. They see everybody coming and going. And when I was running hotels, they would tip me off to things that might happen to keep it legit. By the time I'm running hotels, everything was legit. The mob was no longer involved. I worked for Bill Bennett at Circus, and again for his family at the Sahara. And before that, over at the Greek Isles, formerly the Debbie Reynolds Hotel. And that was a guy from Chicago. And I'm sure that he was connected well as well.
One of the things that I really liked what you told me was the Ralph Lamb story about getting your license.
Okay, I'm going to tell you that story right after we take a commercial break. We're talking with Doug Jablin, filmmaker, documentary maker, and he's talking to me about the discotheques in the 70s. When we come back, I'll tell you a story about former Sheriff Ralph Lamb. We'll be right back. And we're back once again on Vegas Pulse, stories from back of the house. And I'm being interviewed on this show by Doug Jablin. Doug, before you go any further, I want to know this documentary that you've been working on. Mm-hmm. Give us a little bit about it and where is it going to be seen?
Well, it is on the history of nightlife, ranging from 1964 with the birth of the discotheques on through 2002, which is the beginning of modern nightlife. And hopefully you'll see it somewhere at a theater near you.
I think there was another revolution of nightlife after 2002. And I would say it would be closer to in the 10s.
Well,
when corporate America took over.
This is with the beginning of bottle service and the change from electronic music into what DJ ROB likes to call party rock music.
Party rock. In 1974, I needed to go get an advertising license. Sheriff Ralph Lamb was the sheriff at the time. And I said, where do I get that? We go downtown. I go downtown to the licensing bureau. which was in the same building with the Gaming Control Commission, the same building as the Liquor Commission, the same building as the code, to build new places, expand your business, all in the same place. And Sheriff Ralph Lamb was the chairman of every one of those. So he was also involved in giving out business licenses. I went downtown. I said I'd like to apply for a business license to open an ad agency. I was already in the business, but the gentleman who gave it to me had left, and I needed to establish it myself. Say, okay, we'll do that for you, but the sheriff, Ralph Lamb, he's right inside there, and he'd like to see you. I said, well, I don't need to see. Oh, no, yes, you do. I said, well, the sheriff? No, you need to see the sheriff. All right. Again, I'm a rookie. I don't know what to expect. But we knew of Ralph Lamb. He was a great sheriff, and he's the kind of guy that rode his horse down the middle of Fremont Street and Las Vegas Boulevard to work, because he's a cowboy. And the Lamb family had a lot of connections here in town. And they were involved in everything. And they even named the park after Floyd Lamb Park, and it's out there heading towards Tonopah on 95. I don't know if it's still there. They may have changed the name to something else. Mm-hmm. Anyway, go right in. The sheriff is waiting for you. I walk in, and here's a cowboy, all right. He's sitting behind his desk, cowboy boots on top of the desk, big cowboy hat. He's wearing a bolo tie, everything you would expect from the sheriff. And he said, what do you need, kid? And I said, I'm looking for a business license for an advertising agency. He said, why do you want to go in the ad business? I said, because that's something I want to do. They don't make any money. And I'm wondering, how did you know that? They didn't really at the time, but after that we did make some money because we handled all these nightclubs. Anyway, I said, okay. He says, I'll give you a license, no worries. Please make out a check, please, for $50. I said, okay, should I make it out to the city of Las Vegas? He said, no. Should I make it out to Clark County? No. Make it out to the Las Vegas License Bureau? No. Well, who should I make it out to? He said, make it out to me. So I wrote a personal check to Ralph Lamb, signed it, and gave it to him. He says, thank you. Pick up your license. I turned around, walked past the desk. The lady hands me the license, and I got it. And away I went into the ad business. And we take a break right now?
Sure.
We're going to come back with the final wrap of about 3 to 4 minutes, okay?
Okay.
We'll be right back after this. And we're back for the final segment of Vegas Pulse, Stories from Back of the House with Doug Jablin. Jubilation was a big, happy place back in the 70s. And that's part of your documentary?
Yeah, it is. Because right after Saturday Night Fever, disco exploded. Everything we've been talking about for the most part is pre-disco. And when Saturday Night Fever hit, everyone wanted to dance.
Everybody wanted that floor that was in the movie that had the lights on it. And at the brewery, they put that floor in. We did have a floor like that at the brewery. So what was the subject you...
So Jubilation.
Oh, Jubilation. The thing about Jubilation is that it was designed for the cocaine era. And there was the cocaine era here in town in the late 70s and a lot of the 80s. But I left to go run a TV station in Reno, KAME, Channel 21, with other partners, legitimate. But the thing about Jubilation is they designed the bathrooms to accommodate cocaine heads. The doors closed and locks, and it wasn't the usual bathroom. It was a room by itself with a counter that the people would go in there and put their drugs on and take care of business. And everybody came out of that room was really loaded. And it makes for some crazy things. But they had a great restaurant there. And a lot of the politicians, a lot of the big shots all went there to eat. It was Paul Anka's Jubilation at the time, and later became more famous when it became the Shark Club, named after Jerry Tarkanian.
And Frank Rosenthal and Anthony Spilatro had a booth there.
And a piece of the action on top of that, they had a booth there. They did. They also had a booth at the Chateau Vegas, which is not there anymore. They had a booth at the Cafe Nicole, which was another hangout. We go to lunch at Cafe Nicole. We'd go to dinner at one of their joints, Alias Smith and Jones, or another one that I forget the name of it right now. Some other places owned by these people. And then at dinner, late night dinner was at the Chateau Vegas with the best steak tips in the world. And, of course, the Italian food there was out of sight.
One of the things that you told me that I really liked was even if the mob didn't run the club, you had to go through the mob to get all the accoutrements.
They ran the outside of the club, but there was a lot of it inside as well. I mean, I really don't know exactly who had what piece of what, but I'm pretty sure there was some influence in every single nightclub in town because that was their business. And the strip joints, too, except for one, the Olympic Garden, which was owned by, what's his name, Iliadis, who also owned Yellow Cab, a taxi company, which made it easy for taxi drivers to bring business to the Olympic Garden, which was on Las Vegas Boulevard. And the strip started here was a slogan I gave them. It was an obvious slogan, but it was one they used. And Al Mangarelli was owner of the Chateau Vegas in part. He also was in the Black Book, and so he also owned the Rose Bowl race book, which was where the Wynn is now. But he didn't own it in legitimacy. He had to have his wife on the contract and so on. And then there was Country Club Towers. We all lived across the street from the Chateau Vegas in Country Club Towers, which is still standing. And before that, if you were in the mob, you lived on the Las Vegas Country Club. But the mob did a good job. I mean, I they were murderers and thieves, and we should all certainly condemn them for that. But what they did was, and what people still talk about today, is the customer service. Everybody was a VIP. Everybody was not a number. They were a name. And it didn't matter how much money you were losing or winning. Everybody got the accoutrements, the comps, the free sandwiches. In the pits, they had cigarettes, free cigarettes to pass out, free drinks, free food, free cigarettes, and a comp for a room if you're losing. And if you're winning, you got a comp for a better room.
Yeah, a whole different Vegas.
Yeah. You want to do another show?
Sure.
We can do that.
Okay.
Because we're out of time on this one. Mm-hmm. Is there a question you really want to ask that you didn't get to?
It's more just general things because we didn't have time to go into any depth about, the nature of any of the clubs. So
I can go more in depth with you when they die. It'll be a lot easier to talk about these people.
But even just the disco lifestyle that you were living, because you had multiple
drug
cars,
booze fused, martinis and cocaine. That was the order of the day. And now I'm certainly more martini than I was cocaine.
But to be able to go into that, yourself within the era typifies everyone that was, within the era.
It was blatant. Nothing was hidden. It was on the tables. If you knew the maitre d', you were able to score on the way in, whatever you wanted. Or if it wasn't then, get a seat, and a few minutes later, the maitre d'. And they were all named Ignacio for some reason. And for whatever reason, every maitre d' was Ignacio. I don't know why.
Go figure.
But they would come to your table and give you an envelope and thank you very much. It was readily available. The whole town was drug infused. There was politicians, though I will not mention their names, that passed around cocaine at parties in silver trays, just like you see on TV. And Diddy wasn't even there. Just kidding. Cut that part out.
So, yeah, this is, really good. And then the pay-to-play attitude with the county commissioners.
Yeah, there was a way you could buy your way into everything. Now, none of that's true today. They've cleaned.
No, we're talking about the 70s, right?
The 70s, right? We got to say it's the 70s.
Yeah,
it was fast, loose, and wild.
So if you wanted to gain ownership of a nightclub and you were part of the mob, if you paid them enough, then they would give you the license. So,
Pretty much. Pretty much. They go through some official steps, but that was then. Yeah. We're out of time. I want you to invite you back. I'm going to do this show every single week and have you ask me more questions. And if we missed anything on this show, then we can talk privately, and I'll give you the rest of the story. Thank you all for watching the first show of Vegas Pulse. We're gone a little long today, but we'll fix it. I'm Ron Garret. My guest has been Doug Jablin, talking about his new documentary that we'll be able to see soon. He could use some financing. Hey, everybody needs help who are artists. Thanks for watching right here on Hey Vegas TV. Bye-bye.